Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded May 4th, 2022. Good evening, Brody.
Good evening, Edward. How are you today?
He said Edward. I am well, man. It looks like it's just, Heckle and Jekyll hosting the show tonight. Laurel and Hardy. Yeah, there we go. Joan.
That's okay. That's all right. A little private dinner out. Maybe just tell your wife you and I'll be having dinner tonight. I'll light some candles, get the wine. No big deal.
My wife does not miss her free dinner on Wednesdays. You guys should.
Okay.
that'll quickly have to find me find a new place of residence, right? So, and Wednesday's a time that we get sushi, and then she and I play Jeopardy against each other. I'm crushing her to death, but the current champion on Jeopardy is Matea. She is from Ottawa, and she is number 5 all-time winners on Jeopardy right now. She's crushing it.
Nice.
She's gonna make the tournament of champions. So
sweet.
Hey, but to our listeners, supporters, and watchers, today's gonna be a light show. Bro and I are gonna touch on maybe 1 or 2 brief things we've done during the week. Pretty cool. I have about 4 things to show, and then I have a presentation that's actually longer than we want to do on the show. But we are actually going to get the original content developers of this webinar. Franklin sent it to me, and it talks about what the AMA agent versus the old agent versus the new agent, and how does that affect the Azure Sentinel data connector that uses the new agent. And Franklin hit me to some of the shortcomings and some of the differences in it, and a few other things. But as far as work this week, man, you doing anything good?
That's interesting, by the way. I can't wait to see that. And I have been, if you listeners recall, I have recently taken on a project with Insider Risk Management, and this is the first time I have worked in this suite of solutions, and it's very interesting. And week over week, I'm learning more and getting more acquainted. That's not a word. I'm getting more familiar with the capabilities and the tool. And it's, I haven't got like a full production build out in my lab yet, because for some of the policies, you need a third-party human resources connector solution in order to really get full value out of certain types of policies. We're going to have to make something up and feed it some dummy data, because I don't have a enterprise HR system to connect to my lab.
If you really wanted to, they have those 100% cloud-based, we'll run your HR for you type stuff. That's like $99 a year. Yeah. And then all you have to do is just create like a CSV file with dummy data, username, role, title, phone number, address, just make a CSV. And then, add some, fake social security numbers and stuff like that. And then feed it to that company. And, for $99, unless you ask for them to do payroll, create documents, all this other stuff, you'll have that. And then they'll give you that platform you need to then be able, I used to know this one. It was Honey something. We can figure that out if you need help doing that.
Sure. Yeah. That's good to know. We're on the same boat. You need to connect the app or the system to the Microsoft Purview Compliance Center. And then after that, once you've identified what it is, then it's basically, there's no automation between those systems and Insider Risk. You actually do have to provide an export of CSV with the data and then import that into Insider Risk, which you could automate through Power Automate if you wanted to. But exactly what we were thinking of doing, Ed, is just building out a dummy CSV file, have my test user who's leaving the organization suddenly downloading thousands of social security numbers from SharePoint to their local USB device.
Because Ed would catch them using MCAS.
Yeah.
Or MDAD, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. We catch
Medaka. Yeah.
Medaka. Oh man. So that's what you worked on this week. What did I do cool this week? I had a request to help a company that wants to act as an internal MSSP. Nothing new. I've helped out in those projects, but you know, it's a very narrow before I'm building your business rather than helping you onboard Sentinel. So I'm having to make sure that the customer knows I'm not going to build your MSSP solution. First of all, you have to eat your own dog food and become very skilled in Sentinel before you decide that you're going to offer it off as a service. This is not one of those opportunities where you, what's the cliche? Build a plane while it's in the air. No, man, don't go like that. You don't build planes while they're in the air, right? You might as well say, build a car while you're driving it, right? Change your oil while you're driving it. So I put him on a homework. We're not going to keep having calls every week as though this is training implementation. You need to go complete the ninja training.
Nice.
Because I asked them, I said, what's your skill of Sentinel between 1 and 10? 10 being I invented it. I'm one of the top. And 1, like I can't spell it. And they said they're about a 4.
So you. Okay.
So I said, okay, I take an honest assessment of your skills. They have it running, they playing around with it. I said, before you can go down this road of what you're asking me to help you architect, you need to be a 7.
That's fair, especially if you're going to offer it off as a service to your customers. Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, the customers are internal; they're business units, but they're going to charge back.
Oh, okay. So it's not okay. I got you. Interesting.
But it's still the same nuances, right? You may not have the lighthouse like it is an external customer, but some of the internal business units do have their own subscription. Now, for the most part, everybody's up on an umbrella tenant, same namespace, same email space, same tenant, and same subscription, right? And so you don't have to worry about creating these policies and having delegated access by via Lighthouse, but there's still some nuances of doing it internally, right? The biggest thing is building a consistent data ingestion model so that no matter what business unit you go to, you ingest in the same thing that's going to allow you to protect all those environments. Because if you take on the personality of each one of those business units that you're designing a data ingestion model for, Sentinel will quickly become unmanageable, right? Because everybody's going to say, well, we just want this data, not that data. So you have to figure out how to tag data ingestion so that you know who's ingesting what until you're logging on this workspace. So you look at the cost of it, and then you can set it back in the cost estimator so you can build them back, right? And I can't mention the customer name, but they're actually talking about charging an upcharge to the business units in their company.
Making a profit.
Gangster.
Okay. That is gangster. They do a good job, I mean.
Yeah. So, but no, that's what I've been working on. There are 2 guys that are really good at this. Gene, who will be on the next Reactor show.
Can't wait.
And he's gonna cover some of that. And then Ren Yuri, he did it for a very large Big 5 customer, and they absolutely kill it with the way their model is, right? Some IT companies could learn from this customer the way they did it.
Cool.
So
can't wait for those. That sounds interesting.
If any of our viewers on Twitch or anybody else is wondering where the other 2 amigos are, Ross traveling and presenting and doing all that other stuff, and Franklin is doing the same thing. So Brody and I are steering the ship. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the show. It'll be brief, but rest assured, we will get back to the regular cadence of having guests come on. Actually, I got the guests for next week reach out to confirm for next week. So nice. They're ready to come on, and the subsequent week after that. So we're going to be good for commitments over the next 30 or at least the next 4 shows. People are going to show up. They want to come on the show, right?
And then we're down a deposit so that they don't skip out like our last 2 guests. Yeah.
I get it.
I'm busy too. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I never get bent out of shape,
No.
And then a lot of the guests say, I'll reschedule. Just that this is a bad time, and Microsoft is at its last quarter, so quarters in, everybody's running. But I'm gonna tell you one thing that you were talking about insider risk, man. Yeah. You are a case study class example of GFP.
I don't know that acronym.
Glutton for punishment.
Oh, okay.
Messing with insider risk, man. Hey, while I'm at it, big shout out to Norton Norris. Norton, did you get your Microsoft Security Insights swag box? It says it was delivered.
Oh man, I wonder if I see Norton in chat anywhere. Norton happens to work at Microsoft, so I can just ping him right now and see if he's watching. I want to ask him.
I don't have my I don't. Well, I just opened up Discord. Well, I can get Discord to work.
There we go. I'll message him. Hold on, we'll see if he got it. But yeah, we need to do that more. I like handing out stuff is hilarious. We need to come up with some MSI Pod swag, and I'll finance it.
I've had a couple of shirts rendered up for us with both Microsoft Security Insights and Red Cup Security. They just didn't look right. So what I want to do is just get like a little pullover shirt, and as well as get us polos and stuff. So when we start getting in front of people, they're gonna go, "What is that?" I'm like,
yeah, we're like a team. We're like a basketball team of our own polos.
Team.
Golf team.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to share my
glutton
screen
for punishment on Insider Risk. You've worked with this before, and you've had tough times.
It ain't something you can half do.
No, definitely not. I'm learning that as well. And like I said earlier, it's kind of hard to build out a full, robust lab without that, because you can do some of the policies, like general data leaks is a policy, which is basically a DLP policy, right? Like I'm detecting a whole bunch of credit card numbers being uploaded, exfiltrated, printed, blah blah blah. But like the really interesting stuff is where you start incorporating those disgruntled employee reports or employee going to be leaving the company. But Microsoft doesn't know if you're disgruntled or leaving, other than the fact that someone went and deleted your Azure AD account, which might not be your offboarding process anyway. You might choose to put them into a disabled status for months. Some companies do that. So getting that HR connector element of it to really feed the system and the machine is going to be the fun part. And
that can. When I used to do compliance, sort of starting off, which was by virtue of me doing MCAS, AIP was the thing. But AIP, if it lasts much longer, won't be in this way because MIP is going to take over everything and endpoint DLP, right? So you're not going to need it. Now, what they're going to do with one aspect of the AIP product that I liked was the AIP scanner, where you can drop it and just scan repositories and then automatic classification. So I still like that piece. But I heard a customer say that, matter of fact, yesterday said, "Hey, we're so glad to go to their, MIP and endpoint DLP because they don't want to have to create packages for AIP and put the client on endpoints when it's built into MDE and it's built into Insider Risk."
Right.
Like we're getting off AIP. We're just going to do MIP. And we're going to do Insider Risk and MDE, and they're loving it, man.
Will that still work for on-prem file shares and SharePoint, or will you still need that AIP connector infrastructure in order to make classification and labeling work for on-prem file repositories?
I think you're going to still need to maintain an AIP if you're trying to do scanning of repositories.
Yeah.
Remember, you deploy the scanner, and then you point it. You put one on the subnets that you're trying to scan, or put it wherever you can see, file shares, SPO, things like that, right? I haven't done it in about a year, but I was reading the document, so it seemed to be still pretty straightforward on how to do that.
Right. Yeah. And they're looking to kind of upgrade and switch all that up, to your point, because there's been a lot of changes, like they're getting rid of the legacy AIP stuff. But and the name itself was kind of funny. That was the one product name that didn't really change as part of the huge compliance and information protection announcement, which you think it would have, right? Because it should have kind of been part and parcel with all of that purview announcement.
When AIP was first announced, people were like, well, what if I don't have files in Azure?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Azure Advanced Threat Protection. It's like, well, what if I want to protect my on-prem stuff? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm not in marketing, but it's good to know. And yeah, a customer I'm working with they're so big, they don't know what they have for data. And I'm sure they're not the only one out there. I've heard this a lot. It's like, we need you to come and scan with this AIP scanner and tell us what's out there, because we're having a hard time saying that we 100% know where everything is. And that's just sprawl over time, right? Like they're looking to get away from on-prem data centers and consolidate, but they still need to understand what's out there before they make determinations on whether or not to keep it or whatnot. So
and the scanner comes with a bunch of built-in PII, PHI, and some other data classification sets. So it looks for social security number. What do you guys call your SSN up in Canada?
It's what is it called? I forget. It's social insurance number. That's it.
Social insurance number. Yeah. And so different countries have it. Japan, I forget what Japan calls it. I should know. I spent so much time over there. But those built-ins allow you to scan repositories and come back and say, hey, this file has a social security number in it, or this file has a credit card number in it, or this file has both of those in it. And you can create custom identifiers, because when I worked at an aerospace company, what they deemed classified information was the part numbers of their engine components. To them, that was classified information, not the diagrams, just the model numbers and the part numbers, right? So I thought I'd get it. But hey, we're going to get into it because I want to make sure we keep it short, let everybody get out of here early. We get back to the regular routine here pretty soon. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, Ed. Word.
Ed of Ward.
Ed of Ward.
Ed of Ward.
What about Eddie?
You know what? No.
Noted. No Eddie.
All right. So here's a few things that have come from this the Microsoft Security and Compliance blog and community page. So one thing I want to talk about is Microsoft Defender for Cloud price estimation dashboard. This is super important because the billing for Defender for Cloud is still a little bit convoluted because no matter what you're doing, you're still dumping that information off into a log analytics workspace. And you need to understand as you deploy these things, there's Defender for everything. There's Defender for Cloud, Defender for Kubernetes, Defender for IoT, Defender for Defender. You know, you gotta be able to understand, hey, give me some type of estimation or predictive tool, not projection, predictive tool. And so within this link we'll put in the show notes so nobody has to go searching for it, talks about the different ways, and this is actually pretty slick. So it can look at everything from Defender for Cloud App Services, containers, databases, key vaults. Databases is extremely important because this can quickly run up your bill if it's looking at every type of read, write, transactional login on your database. It can be noisy. Defender for servers is sort of easy. The second thing that I tell customers before you turn on Defender for storage, ask yourself, why? Why are you doing that? Because it absolutely records every transaction you're doing, and you'll find yourself with a huge log analytics bill. Now, this is just saying that you're not even using Sentinel because they're mutually exclusive, right?
Right.
You can take Defender for cloud telemetry and put into the same LAW where Sentinel is the overlay. But if you didn't want to and you want to keep it separate, you could. That way you can have a log analytics workspace that's only Defender for Cloud. And for those who are not familiar with the acronym, Microsoft Defender for Cloud used to be called Azure Security Center. Right now, everything's a Defender for something, right? So Defender for X, and X equals whatever you want to do, right? But we'll put this in here. So what I like about this, it allows you to go in and look at per subscription because that's how you enable Defender for anything is by subscription. So if your tenant has multiple subscriptions, it is highly important to understand that if that workload that you deployed up under that subscription is not enabled, even if you have other things within that tenant, that workload is not protected and it doesn't have any type of compliance oversight. Case in point, let's make the math easy. If you have one Azure tenant, and so 3 things you need to be able to work in Azure essentially. You need permissions to do what you need to do. You need a subscription, how you pay for stuff, and you need a tenant/directory. You gotta have those 3 things. So subscription is very important the way Defender for anything works. Defender for X works because if you have a subscription that has 3 in there and you just turn it on for that one, but you're deploying VMs, workloads, paths upon another subscription, they are not protected. And so this gives you projected cost on what it would take to protect your overall environment. Now, sometimes the architecture necessitates that you have different subscriptions. So if you are having a QA environment of a sort, which is probably not a good example, if your QA environment, staging environment is in the same thing as your production tenant, it's not really separation, right? But if you do separate them, you have subscriptions to cost, you need to protect those workloads from app dev to staging to production. And if they have different subscriptions, you got to turn it on. Now, people say, well, until I go to production, which is internet facing, do I really need Defender for anything on these non-internet facing workloads? Well, that depends. Validate whether they're really internet closed off, that nobody can get to these workstations. And if you do, I won't say not to, but I don't see a huge reason to protect something that's not publicly available. But
insider risk.
So the risk is one. And if someone can break the security controls that you have for the ones that ultimately get you back to app dev, then you got a problem. So at least protect the front door in the same word as, the Microsoft product, Azure front door. You got to have that, right? To be able to do that. So this is a good link for those to just get an idea, because pricing is the thing. Everybody knows they need the service. This service is outstanding, but you got to pay to play, right? So we'll put this in the show notes. So you can see that we have Defender for app services, containers, Defender for databases, which includes Cosmos DB and Mongo. There you go.
Cool. Key Vault.
Yeah, man. And look at this, SQL on Azure, SQL databases, open source relational databases, which is, Melissa, MongoDB, and things like that. Yeah. Key Vault, super important, especially if you're maintaining your secrets inside Key Vault instead of putting them into the config files of your application. And, the venerable granddaddy of them all is Defender for Servers, aka Azure Security Center from back in the day. So you can see that cost estimation for this particular subscription. When it says Cyber SecSop, I can tell that this is a Microsoft hosted lab. I think Matt Lowe at Microsoft maintains it.
I have access to that one. That's my
$9.93.
Yo, you know it? Okay.
$990.23 per month. And in grand scheme of things, that's small. Right.
Well, yeah, it's an internal one though, for sure. But yeah, that is small. I think I need to keep the budget tight on that. Oh, there you go. Defender for storage as well. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
This is really handy. I missed this announcement. I'm glad you're showing this today. It looks like it was just posted today. If I saw the release date.
No, that's a good question.
Yeah.
No, March. Actually, March.
Oh, March. Right. It's May, not March. Or it's, yeah.
I sort of knew about it, but I think because I have a lot of discussions around affordability, cost, optimization. This is necessary for those to understand, hey, price is always going to be part of security. Even though everybody knows that security shouldn't have a cost, people are always going to do it because they don't think something's going to happen to them.
It's the insurance argument. I don't need insurance. Nothing's going to happen to me.
Well, use this product or buy your Bitcoin in advance. How about
That's really cool, Ed. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that link as well.
One thing I also like about the way Microsoft is going with their security products is that they're playing well and acknowledge the two other major players. Now, some people say, well, that's sort of, the big boys club, because what about, people that don't use AWS or GCP? I'm like, what are they using? What are they using? IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, their own cloud. But a lot of people, a lot of customers are definitely multi-cloud. Right, because AWS does some stuff better than Azure, and GCP, believe it or not, does some stuff better than AWS and Azure. Right, I'm not, down in GCP. It has its uses. It has some really strong things. If you're thinking data analytics, of course, you're thinking Google, right? So if you're looking at any type of analytics and machine learning stuff, they're pretty strong, right? But here, security posture management and server protection from AWS. This is a good one to read to understand how you extend this out. Someone asked me a question. Edward, can I deploy the AMA agent without ARC on an AWS workload? VM. And then the answer is
yes.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
So the ARC agent is nothing more than an overlay to be able to do automatic deployment of the agent extensions and to extend out your security capabilities of Defender for X to these other ones. But you can definitely install the agent on a supported workload directly with the workspace ID and the primary key, and it'll talk back, right? So you can do it. The only thing I've seen it break, and I saw this firsthand, Amazon Web Services has custom builds. So they'll take an Ubuntu build, Red Hat build, whatever build, and they wrap it with their sort of intelligence or their sort of like going to the marketplace. And when you look at it and try to install it, it doesn't adhere all the time to just a vanilla Linux distro and it won't work. And that was a known issue. I knew about this a year ago. I'm like, why is it not working? It's just in Ubuntu 20.04, but it's their version of how they wrapped it, right? Now, if you build it from scratch and don't go to the AWS marketplace or something like that, then it's a generic one. So that's what it is.
Okay.
And then you get to look at the security postures of those. So you're using your GCP and AWS cloud connectors, and then you're using this to extend it out and look at the security posture that you get, right? You get workbooks out of there, secure score per cloud, right? Now, how they're quantifying that is voodoo magic, because I don't even know how to get the regular security score to do what it does. Frictionless, here's the thing, marketing, right? Frictionless and simple onboarding for AWS and GCP environments at scale. Yeah, you do it that way. Now, you can definitely put Arc on it and then just be able to update agents after that and manage it as part of your control plane in Defender for X.
Right.
And to our listeners, Defender for X is not a problem. X is just equaling all the other defenders we just talked about.
Wait. So why wouldn't you just put Arc on then? Does it increase the cost if you're deploying Defender for servers, I suppose, because now you're extending that to everything? But you can target that, right? It doesn't have to be every.
You can target it. Here's the first thing: you go to the reservations and old school of thinking. People like, oh my God, one more agent to put on my endpoint.
Yeah.
Who's going to manage this, right?
Yeah,
There's no right or wrong answer. And I think if we get time to go through this AMA thing, it may explain some of these things, right? So even if we don't complete it, rest assured that we are going to go get those two presenters and have them come onto the show. Big shout out to Chris Munez. He's been on the show before. Brilliant young man. He's part of Microsoft customer experience team. Brilliant. This dude is good. So when I get up to New York, Chris, if you're listening, we got to get a beer. I owe you a beer. So you can see inside of here, they're talking about the very thing. Discover Azure Arc, free trial, AWS account, GC projects. Now I'm building out a lab for Microsoft Security Insights. I'm almost done, and we're going to have all that stuff in it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I want in on this. I want in on this lab. I'll make it good.
So we own, because we own the domain name and all that. So as I go in and make those custom domain names and verify it, we're going to have a mail space for it. Because people want to send us emails to, Brody at MSI, MicrosoftSecurityInsights.com, whatever else. I haven't figured out the email portion of it yet, but that's it. And this is actually pretty good here.
Oh, look, I commented on that one.
You get that right there.
Yeah.
April 5th. Great job getting this to GAT. Look at you, just a raw player.
I'm trying, bud. I'm trying.
I did not notice that. I knew this person. I forgot
I did that too. Honestly, I thought, I should get on the community and actually respond to these once in a while. It's fun, I never get to talk to product team all that much. Maybe in the future, but there's some just amazing people on our product teams getting this stuff out. And then folks who are listening and you're not a part of the Microsoft family, it's when a group releases something to private preview or generally available, like the email thread lights up. You've got managers and directors from all over the world who are just praising everybody in the team for getting that to GA, and it's just a really, really nice sense of community getting these things out. So there's a lot of hardworking people behind each and every one of these announcements.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one we got is a little bit more recent, March 21st, is update Microsoft Sentinel VIP user watch list, since that's Franklin's favorite product feature inside Sentinel. Yep. And it's actually improving every week, much to the
why does he hate it, or why does he dislike it? What is the mystery behind that? I don't know the answer. He just didn't like it on an early onset version, and he's just carried that forward for the last few years, or what?
Franklin just grouchy.
Yeah,
he thought it was too much work. But it has helped me fix an issue that me and Rob was trying to look at, to watch tables inside Sentinel to see whether they were still getting the data in, right? So I put a watch list on the individual data ingestion tables to look at it, because this table's being fed by 5 things. If one of those things drop off, let me know, because the table's going to stay healthy and the connector's going to stay healthy because it's still up. But one of those things fell off. But back to what you're doing now, look at how you can look at terminated employees, right? So you can put them on a watch list if they're in a, what do they call it when they get ready to get rid of a performance plan, PPI?
Yeah. PIP. Yeah.
Yeah, right here, right?
Oh, now, oh man, I also want to read this one because the way Insider Risk Management looks at terminated employees, it's if Azure AD account gets deleted, and then you get that 30 days before it's actually deleted. So I wonder if this can tie into external HR solutions as well up around terminated employees. That's interesting. I want to look into that more.
Well, if you can automate the process, I think that when a user is terminated or put on probation plan, you can have multiple watch lists. You can automatically add that entity into the watch list and keep an eye on them. Right?
Oh, maybe like with Power Automate or something, you could build that logic in. Yeah, okay.
And that way you can keep an eye on, this person is on a performance plan. If they think they're going to be fired, obviously they're going to do the things you talked about. They're going to try to upload as much data, sales, contacts, and stuff like that. So you can do it. The other thing that you want to do, you see where it says high value assets, a list of devices, resources, another inset. Well, you can tie this in because that terminated employee, based on their role, could be in possession of a high value asset, or that person in itself, him or herself, or whatever, could be a high value target. Right. And so
C-suite.
So you watch the user, you watch the device they interact on, and you watch the activity. So being able to do that. Now, network mapping, stuff like that, to me, this is up and down, making sure that things are not deployed in the incorrect subnets and stuff like that. I'm not really heavy on watch lists like I used to be, because I thought it was the coolest thing. Then Frank just soured me to it, so I sort of fell off. But this actually is improving. And so you can see all the watch list APIs, in Sentinel, the watch list item APIs, and the template. Anytime you can lower the thing, this is good. Lower the ability to adopt it.
Right.
Or lower the lift in the ability to adopt it. You can see that it comes with playbooks, and it gives you prereqs. So we'll definitely take this link and put in the show notes also, so you could get a video that walks you through how to do it. This is not a bump to YouTube. Who owns YouTube? Google?
Google owns YouTube, yes.
You can learn anything on YouTube.
Sure can. Look up Matt Sosman's channel. Want to learn some stuff.
We should call it Matt Sosman University.
Yeah, right? No doubt. And did you see what he's doing recently? He's going to do 60 more days of zero trust videos over the next 60 days to try to manage that thing we were talking about when he was on the Reactor episode around getting away from it's just a marketing term, because it's not, right? Like I work at Microsoft, Edward, you work at Microsoft, we get it, but it's a mindset. It's not a marketing term. And you can call it always verify, right? You can call it anything you want, but like the principle behind it's the same.
And and I like Matt Sosman. He is what's good for the customer, and he doesn't sit on either side. He looks at it from a very neutral technology and business standpoint, because one of his episodes I just got through watching on LinkedIn was Zero Trust. Do you really need it?
Yeah, that was the one I watched too recently. Yeah,
because everybody's like, oh, you have to have it. He's like, well, do you really need it? Yeah. Some people ask the same question, do you need a SIM? Well, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. And I think that the problem with a SIM, it implies a lot of investment in money and time, as well as the ancillary or out of band cost of, if I'm running the SIM, do I need a SOC? Now I got to put butts and seats and this and that. And that's why I tell people adopt Sentinel, because you get away from SOC and you go to a SOP, which is a security operation platform, which means to me, your browser is now your SOC building. So now your SOC can be distributed to anybody who has a supported browser, and then things like conditional access, privileged identity management, MFA locks down your SOP so that when people come on shift to do work across, if any partners out there listening, or anybody who's entertain the thought of building out a physical building and putting it for a SOC, I really would rethink that, unless you have a very specific use case, because you can do something with Sentinel, and Google's going to catch up. AWS, I have no idea what they're going to do, but if I was a person that was in these high echelons of decision making, I was really a player in the security realm, If I was AWS, I'd buy Splunk.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, just like Google bought Mandiant. So to your point, they're going to want to get more involved in capabilities such as this. I don't know their 3-year plan or anything, but yeah, like this. And Ed, this what you just said. I mean, we're going to need people to work remote long term here, right? So yeah, the NASA command center SOC of old is cool with all of your multiple monitors and clocks on the wall and all the different time zones, but we need people to be very dynamic on where they're coming in from. And if you want the best talent that you're in your city might not be in your city. Maybe it's in a rural area, but they're still interested in joining your organization. So let them, get them a managed device, have it locked down, go through all those controls, like you said, around identity, and allow that individual to dial in from the lake and, be able to take the evening shift or something, right? It makes sense.
And combine a little bit of old school with new school, just like you said. You said a managed device. I would say you don't bring your own device. We give it to you.
Yeah.
So that's the old school when it used to be, they give you the device. You didn't get to work on your own. And that way, that device has been onboarded into the environment that is protected with all the controls that can log in. And you don't allow login into your SOP from anything other than a managed and onboarded device that's owned by the company.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Other aspects, like just collaborating on SharePoint or something, maybe you do allow people to use BYOD, but if you're managing security operations, I think managed device makes a lot of sense for the reasons you just listed there, Ed. Word.
Me? I would never I'm an enterprise customer. We figure out how to get the cost. I'm not letting anybody do BYOD. I don't care what the security controls are.
Not for that, especially not for that.
Because there are apps out there to circumvent your controls, like Defender for Mobile, Intune, that try to create an overlay because companies will say, oh, we're not watching your personal stuff. But if you're watching my phone, it has to be a deliberate effort, in my opinion, for you not to look at my personal stuff.
Yeah, I have an Android and they containerize, but on iOS they can't containerize because of how the operating system is structured right now. So if you are using a BYOD iOS device, you have less separation, in my opinion, without knowing all the bits and bytes of the OS differentials than if you had like an Android for that reason, because you have the different containers. But yeah, it's right. Work-life separation. I hear you. It's important.
And that's the reason I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 laptops. Because Franklin and I had a debate. I said, Franklin, should I create a VM to run Kali, or should I just put it on bare metal? He said, I want to know you run a VM. I said, nah, I don't want to share the OS. So I'm always a middle ground person. I go, yeah, I get it. You want to be able to make that image of Kali or whatever transient if you need to move it. So what I did was I installed Linux on the machine using Ubuntu, and then I virtualized the Kali install on the machine. And so that I can back that image up, and I have it, and it's pretty seamless to be able to get the bare metal. So it's not bad.
That's a smart move. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I was just running it on a VM, but yeah, you're right. If you just had your own standard Linux OS and then you installed Kali as a virtualized instance, that's smart. Yeah, that's smart.
The first time I encountered this was years ago. That's how Cisco used to do their employees. When you got a laptop from Cisco, none of the apps and everything they used were in that. They was inside either Citrix or whatever they were using at the time. Right. So that if that device was lost, who cares? So in the Microsoft world, what is that? Microsoft Managed Desktop or Microsoft Virtual Desktop, whatever that is.
Or Windows 365, I guess, is part of that whole play too. Yeah.
Windows 365. So let's go to the next thing we have and keep it in line. Watchlist. People are like, when do I use a watch list? Well, here you go. Common scenarios using watch lists with query examples by our friend, Innocent Waffler, who's been on the show. Hey, shout out, Innocent. You'll be back on the show soon, brother.
Friend of the show, Innocent.
He's a friend of the show, and he's smart.
Very smart. That was a great episode. Can't wait to have him back.
So him talking about scenarios is what more customers are asking for. When do I do this? I'm seeing more customer ask when than how. So that when is taking front stage, over how and why. I think if you put them in a line, people go, why should I do this? When should I do this? And then they get into the how. And the how is getting smart guys like me and you to go out and do the work, right? All right, here's a mission plan, go execute. Right? All right, drop me in, and I got it. But for those that are not following Innocent Wafula, he's a Microsoft program manager. I love getting credit to those who are just good in their job. Love it. He co-authored this with Chai, and she runs the PM group for Notebooks and Sentinel, and she's been on the show. Yes. And then Gene, who's going to be on our next Reactor show, is going to come in, and he's going to show you some real cool stuff. So you got 3 heavy hitters that co-author this particular blog, and it goes through and just has scenarios on why I should be using certain watch lists, right? Watchlist has a lot of uses for those who want to look at multi-dispersed environments around IP address, geolocation. And what I like about them, not only do they not talk about just theory, they give you KQL queries to go with it, right?
Nice.
And so, here's another one, import business data. So if you're trying to import employees who are about to be terminated from the previous day, there you go, right? And populate it with the details of the terminated employees. Because some of the employee details are important. Person was listed as living in Atlanta, got terminated, but now we're trying to see logons from places that are not where he was originally or she was originally headquartered. Like, why is this person trying to log in from, Bismarck when they actually live in Charlotte? So you can see if someone, and then there are rules inside Sentinel, attempts to log into disable accounts, stuff like that. But when you have a watch list to keep an eye on it, it gives you a greater introspection on what's going on. Okay. So all 3 of these, how many did we go through? 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 of these links, I'll put them in the Discord maybe. So I'll do it right now. Let's do a little bit. I don't even know what to put in Discord. I'll put it in the chat, and
I'll take care of it. You send them to me there, boss. I'll put them on the internet for you.
Yeah, I'll get all these over there to you.
I'll get Frank to put them in the show notes. So thanks for stepping through those.
Yeah. So let's go to the next thing here. Let's talk about this AMA agent stuff that we're doing. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So everything you ever wanted to know about using a new Azure Monitor Agent, AMA, and Microsoft Sentinel. And it was authored by Christopher, and he's been on the show twice, and he's good. And then Maria, I've worked with her in the past, just on some maybe some brainstorming sessions, but both outstanding and solid. So what does that mean? So it's let me get it here. Why a new agent? Our agent is a requirement for non-Azure machines. The feature gap analysis between Log Analytics Agent and AMA, the old MMA. Sentinel collection with AMA, security events before and now, Windows forwarded events, and blah, blah, blah. It reads like a list. So this slide deck in this presentation is over an hour. We're not going to do that. It's like 45 slides, but it's public knowledge. You can actually put in the show notes too, so they can have it, but I'm going to try to get them to come onto the show and present it themselves, because the expertise is lost in me trying to regurgitate what they were doing, right?
Yeah, you can't even say half the words in this, so we need them to come on.
Yeah. So why a new agent? First of all, they looked at what was a deterrent for people to deploy it. Too many agents. The Log Analytics Agent, MMA, Diagnostic Extension, and Telegraph Agent, right? It wasn't meant to consolidate all that stuff. Management overhead, which is a big thing. Slower innovation, right? If you have multiple agents, you have to wait on each engineering group to update their agent to make it, so-and-so. And lack of granularity. That's the biggest thing, because people want to be able to have super control of what they're ingesting into the Log Analytics workspace by virtue of the DCR, data collection rules. This was the main reason that they brought this on, okay? Azure Monitor Agent supportability. Now, I got a question today that I'm not sure about, but I love when customers give good. They say, hey, we don't want to deploy it on a VM. We want to put it in a container. I'm like, yeah, you can. because I've deployed a collection agent for MCAS in a Docker. So you can. So you can see the major Linux and Windows Server workloads that you can do it. Brody gets out the brat scratcher. I got to get mine out. That's the spot right there.
Back needed it. Look at that on-premise graphic there. It makes on-premise server racks look so futuristic.
I mean, look at that. It looks like something from Doctor Who. The chronotrons or whatever, right? So as we go, ARC agent is a requirement for non-Azure machines. So it goes through and tells you customer environments, application require evolving. People are using multiple technologies to get their job done, right? The high level is multiple clouds. Second tier is multiple data centers and geographical location, and then multi-vendors, right? So being able to look at thousands of apps, diverse infrastructure, right? Edge, IoT, branch, data centers, work from home, which I didn't, most folks like, oh, you don't have servers at your house. You just go to what that person's doing. You never know, right?
Sure.
And multi-cloud is just like a given. Now, I like the multi-cloud because when we generally talk, we don't really talk about anything other than the three bigs, right? But look at
You're right, but there are more. There are definitely more. And yeah, you're outlining a few there: IBM Cloud, Oracle, Alibaba, VMware, and there's more. There's definitely more out there, right? So it's important.
So I'm just going to.
I don't work with anybody these days that's not multi-cloud. Do you? Like I haven't come across it in years now. Everybody's multi-cloud in one way or another. So, and that's. It's like having multiple streaming subscriptions. There's not one that's going to solve all your watching needs. Same thing with your enterprise needs. So you're going to have a multi-dispersed, multi-cloud
environment.
Solution.
Yeah,
environment. Thank you. That's the word.
So when customers try to deploy this stuff, I said, don't be the atypical IT person that deploys it and reads it as you go. Go bone up on it in advance. So with Azure Arc, you want to go in, understand what Azure Arc does, what its limitations are, read the documentation. And the cool part about this is not an all or nothing. You can prove out your deployment scenario and methodologies on a single machine for most part. And then all after that is just duplication of effort, right? Learning from that deployment, oversight, insight, and say, okay, we need to add this, and that. So by the time you're ready to go full production deployment, you have the ability to test out almost every scenario that you're going to have. Feature gap analysis between Log Analytics agent and Azure Monty agent, right? So you have the LA agent and the Azure AMA agent. So this is a good eye chart to look at, what is coming out GA, agent features, and here's a list. And once I said, these are going to be clickable links inside the document we put in the show notes, but it gives you 10 scenarios on why the differences are and where they're coming. Well, not the differences, but what feature status and where they are inside engineering release. The Azure Monitor agent for Microsoft Sentinel, we talk about the security events of Microsoft Sentinel, which is a very granular one. And it says by August 24, they want everybody to start transitioning off the old agent and you got to be on a new one, right? You got to be on a new agent. If you want to be able to have these advanced capabilities and granularity, the OMS agent and the MMA, they're over. Let's go ahead and move to the other one. And in Sentinel, there is a workbook that tracks your migration. It'll track which agents on each machine as you displace them in your environment, right? So these are some of the other feature capabilities of these particular things. So let's talk about Windows Security Event is what Franklin and I talked about, and which is the reason he told me to read the document. You can see the architecture with Log Analytics agent, right? You had a Sentinel workspace, you had Azure, and you had on-premise. And it gives you a scenario on where you would deploy the agent and how you would use it for security events, right? And that security events in the middle between both of these, and that's the more indicative of how it's going to populate the schema table inside Sentinel, right? That's all you do.
Yeah.
Now, with the Azure Monitor agent, you can split it because I don't need to know if my disk are low. That's not a security thing to me. I don't need to know if the CPU is maxed out. Why it may have some relevance, it's noise. So you can split out your performance counters inside Log Analytics workspace and security events and security event path in XPath.
Well, that just makes sense. Yeah.
You can have a data collection rule that says, hey, only bring this into that Log Analytics workspace and only bring this, or filter out things from on-premise and I only want the Azure VMs or GCP or AWS or Alibaba, stuff like that.
So this wasn't possible before? You couldn't pick and choose? It was just all or nothing? The floodgates are open? Okay, so this could really save people money as well on ingestion because they're going to be able to define what comes in.
Well, the way people were doing it was putting Logstash in front of Signal to prune the logs, discard what they didn't want, and then send up.
Oh, okay, and that's how they would manage too much information coming in and cost. Okay, interesting. Well, this is really interesting.
So Windows is security events for MMA. You can add a data collection rule right off the bat. You can look at different machines. You can look at the AMA, separate between ARC, AMA, ARC and AMA, Windows machines, virtual machines, full metal machines. Some people still run servers on bare metal, right? One workload per machine. The data collection rules are pretty straightforward about what you want to bring in. You can filter down on event IDs, which is really cool. So there's numerous websites where you can just get a list of what each event ID is, and then you can go custom, and you can say, only send me these event IDs, right? There's numerous websites that list all the event IDs inside Windows, and you can just copy and paste them in there, right?
Yeah.
Windows 40 events in public preview. This is nothing more than WEF and WEC being picked up, amplified, being able to do Windows Event 40. So you'll subscribe to a server. That server would then collect all the events from all your Windows machines and then forward them to your log analytics workspace. And all of this is encrypted traffic, right? Because it needs your workspace ID and your primary key.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, who still runs email on premise? They do. There's some people that still do. Right. Windows 40 events is in public preview, so you can go out and check those out, pull it out, add a data collection rule inside of WEC and WEF, Windows Event Collection and Windows Event 40. You could do the same thing with Agent. You could filter the events down. And I'll scroll through this, and you can look at the selected computers on your subscription about which computers. This shows how to set up WEC and WEF. Pretty straightforward. What events you want. You'll see WEF right there. You get a display link. Few other things, right? I've done this a few times, actually more than a few times. Once you do it once or twice, it's either, if it's hard, it's because the people that you're doing it for don't have a good software deployment methodology, or they have a poorly documented infrastructure environment where they don't know what anything is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, so pretty straightforward generally. Yeah.
So we want to get into data collection rules other than what events should be collected and where would they be sent. That's all the DCR is. What should I bring in and which way should it go when it comes in? Like, is traffic coming in, you go this way, and then you go this way, right? And then you have it. I'm going to not try to go through this and read this off as a script, but we'll put it out there, and it gives you some common criteria of security events that you want to capture. Event 1, 299, 4624, 25, 661, things along that line. Those who are monitoring events, they know that, right? You can manage XPath stuff about where you actually want the path and inside of the XML file to define where they're going. Pardon the jumble up slide. I tried to convert it and do it. I'll stop the show with this last thing. How do you do it? Remember, we talked about why, when, and we're going to go how. How do you do it? How to deploy Azure Monitor Agent at scale? People always ask, yeah, I can do it on one server, but how do I do it on 100 servers? You put Azure Arc on the servers.
There you go.
And once Azure Arc on there, you can use that as a provisioning agent to send down the AMA agent, right? You can do a managed identity on your Azure servers that comes when you put Arc on, and then you can install the Azure Monitor at scale. So Arc creates this, which allows you to do that.
Nice. Right? That's pretty straightforward.
Now, as we get ready to close the show out, I was talking about how you track your progress. So if you have the old agents running and they are going into a log analytics workspace, you can track that by heartbeat and check in. But there's also a workbook that goes in and lets you know how far you come along on getting machines in. Machines, in the environment, how many have ARC on it, how many with MMA, how many with AMA, and how many with both agents. Someone asked me that question, can I run both agents? Yes, you can run both agents. And you say, well, why would I want to run both agents? Well, in some instances, you can have a gap in reporting. So you have to put one on before you take the other off.
Yeah, okay. But ideally, long term, you're not running both at the same time.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You may mess up with double data ingestion.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'd be careful with that, right? But this is how you can do it. So you can run both agents. So what you can do is make sure you got complete coverage. Then you run a GPO, Intune/MEM, or whatever your software lifecycle management product is, and you can remove the old agent. And then you have the new agent, right? So it gives you ability to get the new agent in, configure it to the parameters that you want. Once everything's copacetic, once you hit that number 51, right? And when that number is equal to that number, and now you can then go in and reduce that number till you get to this number. So the goal is to get it on all of these. You may want to use ARC, machines with this, and machines with AMA, and with both agents, right?
Yeah. And for those who are listening to the pod, we highly encourage you to check out a recording of what Ed is talking about here once it's posted, because he's going through a deck right now, and you might not know what he's referencing when he says this one, that one, or the other one. So really cool deck that Ed's showing right now. So we'll get that recording posted for you.
So should I move to the AMA agent now? Remember we talked about why, when, and how. So we just talked about how to do it. When do it. The potential blockers to migrate over are DNS, cloud private preview, DNS events, firewall events, and custom logs. Main drivers to install the AMA are cost savings. You can really filter down to what you want and validate the logs. And if you get it in, there are some mechanisms inside Sentinel that says, yes, I brought this data in. It's been sitting here 90 days. I haven't run a single query against it. I haven't run a single analytic rule against it. I haven't done anything. Why am I holding this log? Why not just send it to ADX or send it to Blob Storage or send it to Azure or Sentinel Archive? Log Analytics Archive. Get it out of here, right? And save me some money. I'm going to stop it right there because the useful resources link is going to explain all of these things. And like I said, it's going to be posted. But this is a pretty good presentation. I'm not doing it justice, but if we can get the original presenters on and give them a solid hour to do it, our listeners are going to learn so much. It may be worth a reactor show.
Yes, I was thinking that too, right? And then if they have a lab environment too, where we can like cut over and take a look at things, yeah, that would be really cool. And hey, you missed one thing on your why slide. That's right at the top. The old agent is retiring August 2024.
Bingo.
So if you're listening out there, August 2024, coming up quicker than you think, just like any time something expires. So if you can start transitioning and you see benefit, no roadblocks based on those items that Ed listed off, might be something to think about in the near term.
And I also believe that this is going to happen. When that agent retires, that's not end of support. That's end of life. We're not going to, it won't do anything anymore. And so there aren't really very many risk factors going to the new agent, right? It's not going to crash your server. It's not hard to deploy. I promise.
Yeah. Okay.
And the same methodology that you use to deploy the original agent, whether it be SCOM, SCCM, MEM/Intune, or whomever the other products are that you use to provision agents and deploy software, you can do the same thing to get the new one on and take the other one off. So those who have system center skills, this is a no-brainer for them. This is a low lift. Give me the agent. Let me make a package, push it out, confirm that it's checked in, looked at the workbook, got 51 servers, 51 on the new, 51 on the old. All right, let's get all the old ones off. Run another package for removal and doesn't require a reboot.
Done. Oh, they don't require reboots. That's smart. Just like the MDI sensor. Yeah, that's smart. As they shouldn't, right? Having a reboot on a server is silly if we can avoid it.
Yeah. Right. And if it did, it doesn't stop the functionality of it. If you just want to remove some software file folder hierarchy and maybe some registry changes, when your next change control window comes up to reboot that server. And then your servers should be in some type of HA environment anyway, where you have a primary and secondary, right? So you can do it one at a time. Yeah, one at a time. I'm gonna stop sharing. That's all I got, man. Anything you got?
Man, well, you just blitzed 5 different topics in 40 minutes. You're no wonder they're paying you the big bucks here, Ed. Jeez.
Who's paying who? Hey, Mrs., am I getting paid big bucks? My wife's like, no, you aren't.
That was awesome, man. Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you for
So
presenting on that.
no problem. So to our listeners, we will have a guest. They're going to come on next week. The topic would be the Microsoft security community and those who publish all of these documents. They're going to come on and talk about how they aggregate, correlate information, and then they present it out to the overarching community. With that being said, thanks everyone for listening in. Please post any questions you have in the Discord. If you want to see the actual video, we're going to post it on YouTube, I'm sure, as well as all the show notes from this will be sent out and be published. Thanks for tuning in to the Microsoft Security Insight podcast / the Microsoft Security Insight Reactor Show.
Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, by the way, Frank, we need to get like an ending audio thing for our podcast.